Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. I actually joined a little early so people can find the video on the feed. Okay, I'm just double checking to make sure that the audio is working on all the different channels. New hair and I get confused by it. Let's see here. Looks like some people are joining, so thanks so much for joining, guys. And I wonder what this humming sound is. But it looks like the sound is working okay. Let's see here. Okay, I think I'm good with the audio. So let's get started. And let's see here. Hi, and thank you so much for joining. My name is Krisell Valenzuela, and I am a psychic medium, an energy healer, an Akashic Records reader, and a spiritual development coach. I do these virtual psychic demonstrations because I think it's so important that when you choose to work with a practitioner that you feel a resonance, that you know their energy, and that you feel the resonance of working with their energy. Basically, you want to find that you are a vibrational match, that you mesh. And so I like to do these virtual demonstrations for a couple reasons. So the first one is so that you can get to know my energy and how I work, should you decide to work with me in a private session or in one of my classes. And the other is that people don't always need a full session in order to process their healing. Sometimes they just need a quick hit. I know personally, I've had moments in my life where I'm going through something and I don't need someone to necessarily decipher my energy for me. Sometimes we're so close to whatever it is that we're moving through that we could use that support. I'm the kind of person that I want to dig into the weeds. I want to do the work. I want to understand how it works and get creative with that process and move through it myself. Like I'm very hands-on. So if you're that kind of person, maybe this avenue, this forum is the best fit for you as opposed to working with me one-on-one or in one of my classes. So one of the things that I wanted to do with these psychic demonstrations, aside from readings, is to share some knowledge, to share some spiritual development tips that I feel was very helpful to me in my own development, but also I feel like these tips are basic things that people should know. Like if we were taught spirituality in kindergarten, this is what we would want to set up our kids with to create a strong foundation. So what I've done is I've kind of created a schedule for my psychic demonstrations where on So every Thursday, I'm right here. You can come back here on Thursdays. My intention is to be here every Thursday, but let's be real, there are times where my energy feels really low. I'm very intertwined with the collective, and I also have my own personal energy. And so when I feel like my energy is particularly low or that I need to honor a need for rest, those are times that I might cancel my lives. I try to pop on, say hi, let you guys know, but for the most part, I show up. And so what I've done is I've created the schedule. And so the first Thursday of every month, I do my popular emoji readings. The second Thursday of each month, I plan on doing a bit of psychic development. And so that may be us playing psychic games or me sharing tips or answering your questions about spiritual development. And the third Thursday of each month, I'm going to be teaching something. So this is different from psychic development, where we may just be talking about a topic and how it relates to our energy. And the last week of each month, the last Thursday of each month, I'll be answering your questions. So whether it be through questions that I get in direct messages or questions that come up in private sessions that I feel could benefit everyone, or you can show up to the live, share your question, and then I'll answer it on the spot for you. I just want to use this as another opportunity to make myself available. If you don't have the means, or if you don't feel like a one-on-one session is what you're ready for right now. So hey Rachel, thanks so much for joining from Minneapolis. I have some friends out there, so you have great people out there. I know it. There are great people everywhere. Let's see here. Okay, so hi Nikki, New York. Hi Nikki, thanks so much for joining. So today's topic, I wanted to talk about spiritual protection. So I'll talk a little bit about spiritual protection, and then for those of you that hang around, I am going to be doing some free live readings. I'm just going to turn on my light. I'm in California, and it's starting to get dark here. If you guys are just joining, drop me a comment, say hi. And yeah, sorry, I distracted myself. So when it comes to spiritual protection, I feel like the thing that people need to know the most is that to check yourself, because how you're feeling and what's running through your energy at that moment, that is the number one thing to think about, because how you show up is how you're basically dictating the terms of your engagement. This is how you show up is what you're attracting, and the tone that you're setting for all of your interactions thereafter. And spiritual protection is an experience, a topic near and dear to my heart, because I started my journey, I call it my conscious spiritual journey. I started it about it was 2018, January 2018. And prior to that, it was probably 2 years before that a friend came over to my house, and she had just taken an intuition development workshop and read my tarot cards. At the time, I had no idea. I don't think I really knew what tarot cards were or what was involved, but she offered to read my cards. She wanted to practice, and I just knew I trust this friend. She's one of my closest friends. And so we did the reading, and afterwards I felt scared. And I started to feel scared because I didn't know what I just did. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And maybe it was the next day I shared with someone what I did. And I grew up Catholic. I am Filipino. The Philippines is practically a Catholic nation. And the person that I shared that I got a tarot reading from said something along the lines of, I don't know anything about tarot, but I know someone that had a reading and a lot of bad things started happening to them. It was like they had opened up a relationship with the devil. So not understanding anything about metaphysical knowledge or tarot cards, obviously this scared the life out of me. And so wanting to feel empowered and to understand really what I was getting into, I started going down the rabbit hole. And going down the rabbit hole, I learned a few things along the way. First off, the friend that I trust and did the tarot reading for me, she's such a good friend and a close friend of mine, that she knew that I was scared. And so she gave me some tips. Whether take what resonates with you and leave behind the rest, because if it doesn't feel good to you, there's no point in trying to force it. So one of the things that she shared with me at the time was to call upon the Virgin Mary. And the reason why she said is because the Virgin Mary is like the mother of all mothers, and she nurtures you. And so she's always there to protect you. So you can call on her, say a prayer, whatever feels right for you to engage with her. There really is no right or wrong way. It's just the way that you do it. And so it brings me to a great point of calling in the energies that help you feel protected. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't matter what you call it, what you call the energy, or what the energy really is, but it's your intention that really does the magic. If you're setting this intention to call on this protective energy, then that is what you are creating. That is the energy that you're calling in, and that's the energy you're manifesting. So Rachel asked a question. How do you feel about tarot apps? Grew up in a non-denominational pastor's kid. I can completely understand that you working with the right. Yeah. So how do I feel about tarot apps? Actually, I'm gonna use cards today for some of the readings. And as far as tarot apps go, I think they're fine. I'm not a tech. I'm not a software engineer, so I don't understand like the intricacies of the logarithms and whatnot, or algorithms. I don't know. Sorry, but I think that they still work. I feel like no worries. I got what you were trying to say. I feel like tarot apps still work. And it still comes back to, what is your intention and how do you feel about it? So I feel like tarot apps is really just trying to make the tool, the divination tool, accessible for more people. And so, sometimes carrying around a pack of cards is not practical, or really it's just because it's not practical. So I see people using tarot apps as kind of like revolutionizing or making it more accessible, or simply making it, just giving another channel to access it. It all goes back to accessibility, sorry. So personally, I purchased a deck of cards from Labyrinthos, and it's one of my favorite decks to use. It's the Golden Thread Tarot deck. And it took several weeks, probably 2 months, for me to receive my card deck. And until I got my deck, there is actually an app. So I was able to use the app up until I got the physical deck. And I feel like it still works the same. You're still getting what you need, and you're still getting the message that you need to hear. How that magic works, I have no idea, actually. But it comes up to another great point about when you hear people talk about metaphysics and esoteric, you'll hear people say that time and space are an illusion. I'm not great at explaining it, but I'm going to do my best to explain what that means. So you'll hear people talk about the different dimensions, and you'll hear people reference the 3D, which is the time physical, that's the physical plane. That's where we are. We're in the third dimension. And they say that time and space help us to have our growth and expansion, because time and space are what create the linear type of processing that we know and are familiar with today. If you guys have Gaia, the Gaia app, the initiation series is really great at explaining that. And I think the host's name is Matthias Gustavo Di Stefano. And he's the one who really explains like what the relationship is between time and space. But I bring this up again because the idea that it needs to be physical for it to have value, or for it to have resonance, or for it to have any sort of effect on us, comes into question when you consider like the relationship between time and space and the 3D, and then like it doesn't exist anymore in the 5D, which is kind of like this elevated consciousness of how do we choose to exist outside of time and space. So when we think about, okay, if time and space are just an illusion to kind of foster this this linear experience that we have, I love initiation. I still need to finish the second season. But then when we get out of the time and space kind of understanding, and we say, okay, so if time and space don't matter, if it's just an illusion, that we always have time and there's always room for XYZ, then how will that change our thought process? I know that I'm kind of getting myself distracted just thinking about it, because then you start to think about all the different possibilities if you were to remove like scarcity, because scarcity is very much like a linear thought process of when you think about acquiring things. If you think about acquiring like wealth, I'm teaching a class right now on the energetics of wealth, and scarcity is a big thing, because we go through high school, and if you've taken a college economics class, you're taught about scarcity, and it's just manifesting everything else in us that tells us that there's not enough, you're not enough, that you're limited. It is the limiting belief that creates the limiting beliefs. But if you take a second to question it, and I'm sorry, I just got my hair cut on Sunday, so I'm still getting used to my bangs. So if you start to question everything, because you start to realize that, well, what is really real? When you start to question what is really real, what makes it law or absolute that scarcity even exists? What is it that, and I'm sorry, I don't know who came up with the idea of scarcity, that there are unlimited wants and limited resources, but what made that person infallible in claiming that? And then why did we perpetuate it, and why did we make it canon, and why? I'm reading this book by Professor Lenny Strobel from, she was at Cal State Sonoma, but it's called Decolonization Coming Full Circle. And regardless of what your cultural background is, the book is really beneficial because it relates decolonization to deconditioning your mind from all of the beliefs that you've attained through from childhood up until now. And I would even argue that a lot of those beliefs that are embedded in our DNA, that are passed down through our bloodline, that it also helps us kind of change our thought process to then start questioning those things too. And so when you think about anything, you should never just accept it. I have a meditation on my YouTube channel, and it's the heart guidance meditation. And I started sharing this meditation with people in one-on-one sessions because a lot of times people would come to me for yes or no questions. And those are the questions that you can answer on your own, because no one can tell you the answer to a yes or no question other than yourself, because it's always relative. It's from your soul's blueprint and from your soul's alignment what the answer of yes or no should be. And so I started sharing that heart guidance meditation, and I encourage you all to check it out, because it helps you tap into the energy of your heart chakra, which is what filters out that which serves your highest good, which is in your soul's truest alignment. And you can use it so that when you come across things where you're like, okay, I don't trust you, but I know me and I can trust me, and I can ask myself, is this to be trusted? So that I can clear my mind and then tap into the energy of my heart and feel if it resonates. So that's really important. That continues to be really important for me, to help people to discern what is right for them. And in doing what's right for you, then you contribute to the collective energy of what's right for everyone, because we're all just here to be our most unique expression. And we can only do that if we just do us. So real quick, I'm going to share a couple more things in terms of spiritual protection. And the next one is that for spiritual protection, you can use tools. So I talk about crystals and how you can use crystals to help protect your energy and help you build boundaries. And typically any kind of dark stone is very grounding and helps ground you to protect you. So any kind of dark stone, so black, brown, so those are your obsidians, your tourmalines, brown. What is brown? Actually, it doesn't even matter the name of the stone. I actually teach my kids when we're around the house, because we have stone around our landscaping, if they find dark stones, that those are really good for grounding them and helping them feel protected. But the idea of using an object is really the idea of using a totem, something that anchors you and helps you feel grounded, regardless of what it is. It could be a piece of jewelry that a family member gave you. It could be a blankie. I mean, that's basically what kids are doing when they have blankies. That is their anchor, and that's what helps them feel grounded and protected. So when you kind of start thinking about, so that's the purpose, that's the reasoning behind these different practices, then you can start thinking outside the box and creating your own personal practice that works for you, because when you have that personal connection, you're way more likely to do it rather than someone else telling you. And it will actually be far more effective because it resonates with you. And it has your energy signature all over it. Another practice for spiritual protection. So I know I talked about calling in guides or calling in energies that make you feel protected. So I mentioned Virgin Mary. It could be a family member that's crossed over or a friend that's crossed over, calling on them to come help you. And you could do that a number of ways. So you can actually say it in your head, kind of like saying a prayer or sending out a lifeline to your friend or your family member. Or you can visualize them coming and creating a force field around you and helping you stay protected. Another option is actually Virgin Mary's one, friend, family. You can call on God, source, the universe, whatever feels right for you. Archangel Michael is another energy that is also all about protection and that kind of thing. Excuse me. Going back to visualizations, you can also visualize the force field yourself. The best energy to call on is your higher self, because your higher self is an aspect of you. It is the highest expression that is closest to source energy of you. It is a part of you. And when you call on this energy, it actually is closest to you trusting in yourself, because you're basically calling on yourself. Okay. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. But I am going to end a little early today because of this class that I'm teaching. And so I want to jump into some readings if you guys want to have some readings done. And so I am using my cards, and these are actually archetype cards. So when it comes to cards, once you kind of introduce yourself to them, you'll realize that there are cards of every kind of theme, and there aren't just tarot cards that kind of follow a structure of numerology and certain elements and kind of the same themes within the deck. When you go outside of tarot, you start finding all kinds of oracle cards that have their own kind of theme and structure to the energies that they are presenting and the energies that they're working with. So I feel like all cards, they kind of just work, because cards are living energies. They have their own energy, and they work with your energy, as with me as the practitioner or the facilitator, and then with whomever I'm doing the reading for. So we're all working together to co-create an experience. So the cards I'm working with today are Carolyn Miss, and it's the archetype cards. And so what I like to do is I'll pull a card for you, and the intention that I'm setting for today is that we pull the card that helps us understand what we need to know for our highest good to be in embodied communion with our higher self. Okay, so what I like to do to make this fun is actually, I like to do emoji readings. And what I do with emoji readings is you take a second to take a deep breath. Think about if you have a question, and as you think about that question, just sit in that question for a second to kind of build that energy and foster that energy. And then when you're ready, you can drop an emoji for me. And what I do is I unpack that emoji, let the energy out, and then read that energy, but let the cards support me in that. So when you guys are ready, since we're a small group, everyone's going to get a reading. And when you guys are done with your reading, I may just end it with you so that I can jump off and get ready for my class. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the deck that I'm using. So this deck I'm using is an archetype deck by Carolyn Miss, and basically it follows, I think it's, I forget what his name is, but I think it's Carl Jung. And what he said was that, maybe it was Freud, but what he said was that we basically go through life taking on different roles, that we're just playing these different roles. And so these different roles are neither good nor bad, they just are. It's in our expression on the dynamic range of this role that, maybe we're in overexpression or underexpression, and where we fall in the middle between those two polar opposites, that's totally up to us, but that's where we find our balance. And so what I like to do with archetypes help me understand really the full range of our capacity in these different roles. But also, these archetypes can help us understand what it is that we're working through and what the lesson that we're processing is. And it's helpful because if we find ourselves going into a pattern, we're not drones. We're dynamic human beings. And the plan or the goal is not to drone on through life. It's to awaken and to break from the pattern and just do you. Do you. That's not a drone. That's not what do they call it? A script. So that's what I like these archetype cards for. Okay, so if you have not dropped me emojis yet, just think about your intention for the reading and then drop me an emoji. So I'm going to start with Nikki. So Nikki, I think I recognize your name from another group I used to do readings for. So thank you so much for being here. Or maybe it was one of mine that you came here, that you showed up for. But I'm going to unpack your emojis. Okay. So this is, let me see if I can fix the light. Someone showed me something. Oh, does that work? This is my Jenny Craig menu in the background. So your card is the Avenger card. And I'll read what the card says. Okay, so the card says, the Avenger in light attributes is a desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself. And the shadow attributes are resorting to violence in the name of a cause. So the Avenger card comes up when there's activism. And activism can kind of go both ways. So I know our patterning is, but no, activism is only when you're standing up for a good cause. But the truth is, activism is simply taking a stand to be heard. Doesn't matter what kind of cause you're standing up for, because good and bad are all relative, right? So what this is calling into question is, first off, it has to do with the collective. It has to do with your place in the collective and your relationship to the collective. And when it talks about desire to balance the scales of justice, righteousness on behalf of society or oneself, it feels like it has to do with on behalf of yourself, righteousness on behalf of yourself. And the desire to balance the scales. Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit. So this card, the first thing when I look at it is the background. It's like this blue. Actually, when I look up real close to it, it's like this dark blue with hints of green. It reminds me of algae, so it kind of reminds me of like an aquarium and water. And when I look at that, it makes me feel like there's a lot of subconscious energy going on here. And I get that because it reminds me of water and it reminds me of the ocean. When I think about the algae, So green is the color of the heart chakra, and green is all about healing. And when I think about the ocean, algae is like this living organism that builds up in the water. So as we think about our emotions and our subconscious, our emotions are kind of building up, are creating things on its own. And it's our job to move through it and to really allow it to have space and give it time and time is there you go that darn time and space again, but to allow it to take up space, to allow our awareness to float to it, to allow it to take up our awareness so that we can move through it, because there is healing in it. When our emotions come up, I always see it as a signal from our higher self, our subconscious, of things, of helping us understand our relationships to the things that we are experiencing. So when I'm thinking about the collective, because I do feel like this is all about you and the collective and this relationship of the collective. So actually, let me rephrase that, because this is about righteousness on behalf of yourself. It feels like it is about you. But there is the aspect of the collective in there, because what's happening in the greater collective is making you feel wronged. It feels like this righteousness on behalf of yourself is because within the collective you feel like you've been wronged or violated, that there may be some dissonance or some break from the collective energy or the collective opinion, because of how you feel. And this is your time to sit with it and to really soak it in. The picture, you wouldn't be able to see it through the camera because the camera doesn't have that high of a resolution, but the picture has all these little white lines in the background. And it's funny because we were talking a lot about things being linear, but this is not linear. There are all these lines, but it's not uniform. They're all crisscrossing. So it's that whole idea of, we have this crazy chaos, it's kind of like chaos theory, like everything is happening at the same time. And if you try to compartmentalize it, or if you try to put order on it, you're only going to make your mind explode from trying to integrate it that way. So release that. And the way I see this release is, it feels like you need to do some, you could do this, you don't need to do this, but it feels like it would benefit you to do this through breath work. And the way that I see you doing this is that I see you actually standing up, leaning forward. And so it feels like there might be a lot of people pleasing happening, because we tend to lean forward when we're saying yes, yes, yes a lot. And so it feels like doing some breath work where you breathe deeply into your diaphragm and then into your chest could help you release those emotions and help you kind of like correct your posture, help you stand up tall again, help you come back to balance, is what it feels like. One of the other things is that, one of the other things in this card is that there's this big yellow shape in the background of the card, and behind the Avenger, the person that is the Avenger. And yellow represents our solar identity and drive. And so when I see this, it feels very much like that is front and center. Like it's front and center for you, what your purpose is. And so you're really like driving towards that. It doesn't mean that you can't take breaks to be driven. It's part of the process to take breaks and allow yourself to integrate what you're picking up, what you're moving through, what you're integrating. And so it feels like it feels like you have a lot going on already, but that you may be ignoring the things that are coming up emotionally because you feel like you are so hooked in and laser focused on what your purpose is that you feel like that's going to drag you down, or that's going to distract you. But the truth is they all kind of work together. And so that's where we come back to life is not really linear. Let's see here. I want to see if there's anything else that I can get from looking at this. So in the book, it says, look for a lifelong pattern of defending or representing causes on behalf of others. So I mentioned earlier that it feels like this is more so about you and kind of how you're motivated for yourself. And so it feels like you may feel like the victim because you're constantly having to push and defend yourself from what's going on in the collective. That's also an invitation to ask yourself, why the resistance? Because resisting is just creating a block. Even if, so in my own practice, I judge a lot of what I'm getting, not in the sense like, oh, I can't believe that person has this coming up, but more like, I don't know if I really believe that I can deliver this to the person. Like, I don't know if I'm crazy or if this is really what I need to share with them. So I end up judging a lot of the information that I'm receiving. And so in my own development, what I learned is that when I just kind of flow and let it go and not judge it, it tends to be resonate stronger because I'm just being a clear channel and letting it come through. Who am I to judge whether this will make sense to the person I'm reading for or not? And so I share this because it feels like you may be that may be the case when you come across things that make you feel like the victim, or when you come across things that you want to resist because it doesn't look or feel like something that you necessarily want to get into. But you have to trust yourself at some point that you are equipped and capable of taking on what life is giving you, because it's true, life doesn't give you what you cannot handle. Okay, and then your higher self gave me the signal that was it. So I'm just going to disconnect with your energy, Nikki. And if you feel called, please share how that resonates for you, because it helps the people that are watching that are afraid to share or be read, be more comfortable with it. So something that I just got was, so usually this breathing technique to help move a lot of emotions is through the mouth. And what happens is you can tend to have like a really dry mouth. And I read somewhere that when you breathe through the mouth, you tend to bring in more bacteria, because when you breathe through your nose is like acting like a filter for the air that comes into your body. And so balance your breathing between your nose and your mouth. And breathing through your nose really helps regulate the air and prepare it to come into your body for like the most efficient impact. And then that nose breathing really helps soothe our parasympathetic nervous system. So when we're feeling stressed or anxious, it really helps us soothe through breathing, as opposed to other methods of self-soothing that could be damaging to our body or our mind or so on and so forth. So Rachel, I'm going to be reading for Rachel next. And then I think this might be the last one on, I'm not sure, we'll see how it goes. But join me every Thursday, and I think I put in the comments the link to my events page on my website. So if you have, if you want to see what my schedule looks like for my Thursday readings, you can click there and join me, or come back to wherever you're finding me and join me here again. Okay. So Rachel, I hope that you are still around. Okay. I got the Avenger card, but I got it reversed. And that has to do with resorting to violence in the name of cause, or just when you think about when you're fighting for a cause, and when you are in balance or in the light expression, or if you are fighting for a cause and kind of working in the lower vibrations. But this deck is really big and it's larger than a regular deck. So sometimes I have trouble shuffling it. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out half the deck and know that whatever card needs to come up is going to be the card that comes up. And then I'm going to shuffle it a little bit like the biggest card. Okay, so the card I got for you is the Samaritan. So let me do a little trick here so that you can see the card. Ooh. Okay. And I won't really worry about you being able to read the card because I'll read the card to you. So light attributes of the Samaritan is refines your capacity to help those you would prefer to ignore. Refines your capacity to help those you would prefer to ignore. Shadow attribute is exacting appreciation and recognition for help you offer. So first off, the color of this card is orange, which speaks to, okay. So the card color of orange, orange speaks to your sacral chakra and how you feel. So talking about your emotions, how you express those emotions, how you receive those emotions, how you process the emotions. Also, it has to do with your creation, creativity, sensuality, pleasure. And all these things come together because when you are in true creation energy, it's when you are creating from a place of pleasure. Not pleasure, erotic pleasure. I mean, it could be erotic pleasure, but we're thinking broader here because not everything is erotic creation. We're thinking about the things that light you up and make you feel, digging into your emotions again, and make you feel pleasurable, happy, satisfied. The Samaritan, when we think about the Samaritan, it's about helping anyone, just helping the person on the side of the road. So when it says the light attribute is it refines your capacity to help those you prefer to ignore, it's just about refining your capacity to help others. So I share that because in the card, it shows two acrobats, and they're two acrobats swinging, and then they're holding each other in midair. One person is catching the other. Because you are both people, you are both the person that is catching someone as a Samaritan, but you're also on the other end of that. You're the person that may need help from a random person one day or need help from the Samaritan. So in terms of this card, one of the other things that I notice is that there are little dots in here. And it looks like every color is pretty much represented because I see yellow, green, this blue and periwinkle color, this magenta, like pinkish purple color. And so it just feels like this as sort of a foundation or a base for the higher chakra energies. So your capacity to feel and to help give is also an intention to receive, because giving is in relation to receiving. Like there is no giving if there isn't someone to receive on the other end. Sorry, I just thought about a teacher that talks like that, and it really frustrates me sometimes because I'm like, okay, you're confusing me, because I feel like we're talking in circles. Let me find the book and see what there is to share from the Samaritan card. Closely related to the martyr, Samaritans make sacrifices for those they might be least inclined to serve, as in the gospel parable. So since you grew up as a pastor's kid, you probably get the whole idea of the Good Samaritan. I grew up Catholic, but I was not well versed in scripture. But the shadow says, shadow Samaritan helps one person or group to the detriment of another, his family or society, implying a kind of self-importance that says that others must adhere to his choice of who is most deserving. So when we think about the light attribute, it comes back to the unconditionality of love, where being able to tell someone like, hey, you violate me, but I love you and I'm not going to put you in harm's way. And also being able to say, hey, you're my person and I love you. So regardless of how you feel about them, it's because you love unconditionally that you're going to help them. So when we talk about the capacity to help people that we're not inclined to, it's knowing that there is a deeper reason, that there is something more anchored than us. There's something bigger than us that really drives that. Look for a continuing pattern of going out of your way to support others with no regard for whether they are family, strangers, or even enemies. So actually, I feel like with this card, it's asking you, where are you falling on that dynamic range of the Samaritan? Where are you falling on that dynamic range of the Samaritan? And are you a giver or a taker? Okay. So Rachel shared, heart for all, but especially, yes. So you are the Samaritan. I think that's beautiful. And I always feel like when people are talking about, I want to help others, but I don't know how to help them, or I want to help others and I want to help everyone. What you are going through has so much purpose in what your medicine is and how you help others. So drawing on the trauma and the experience of what you went through so that you can help others move through it is so beautiful, Rachel. I'm so honored that you are here. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone for joining. Meet me here next week, next Thursday, same time. And that's it. Join my mailing list. Join my mailing list to stay current on all of my events. I'm going to be having some really special new offerings coming out in the next month. And so if you'd like to stay on top of them, because I will be having some special offers for those on my mailing list, all you have to do is head to my website and join there. So thank you. Have a great evening, and I hope to see you guys all here again.